Genius people who beat the system. Up until 2019, women were not allowed to attend soccer matches in Iran. But in 2018, these 5 girls successfully snuck into a championship soccer game disguised as men. Some schools don't allow guys and girls to be in their dorm rooms together. But this couple came up with a very creative solution to still hang out and watch movies together. A mayor in Brazil prohibited bar owners from setting tables on the sidewalk. So the bar owners came up with an amazing solution that honestly looks pretty dangerous but also fun. This man from Turkey was banned from his favorite soccer team stadium for a year, but he didn't let that stop him from missing an important game. He rented a crane and raised himself high enough so he could see the game, and he even led the crowd in a chant. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 4. In 2016, engineers at Nissan created the office chairs of the future. By linking each chair to Wi-Fi and adding motorized wheels, the engineers were able to create an army of chairs that tuck themselves away at the clap of the hand. Snappy Screen has made protecting yourself from the sun easier than ever. The machine spins you around and coats you in a perfect layer of sunscreen. You can choose your desired SPF, and the booth comes with disposable shades to keep the sunblock from getting in your eyes. Students from the University of Washington created a pair of gloves that can translate the physical movements of sign language into spoken language. Now people without the ability to vocalize can communicate with non-sign language speakers easier than ever. Scientists at Disney have developed a special charger that can be built into the very walls of certain rooms. These rooms can wirelessly charge up to 10 devices by reverberating electromagnetic waves off of metal walls. Many people claim to have found the reason as to why 2020 and 2021 have been the worst years ever. So supposedly this is what the fallen angel Lucifer looks like, and this is what the moon looked like on March 31st, 2020. As you can see, they look exactly the same, and many people claim that this was the beginning of all the bad things that happened in 2020 and also in 2021. I already made a video talking about that unexplained diving footage, but after I posted it, I found a new clip that explains everything. In the new video that I found, you can see this scary looking lady reach out and grab the camera. I quickly realized that it looks very similar to the supernatural horror movie The Deep House, which is about divers exploring a submerged haunted house. Here are some side-by-side screenshots from the unexplained footage and the Deep House trailer. So the footage isn't real, it's just clips people took from the Deep House movie that they posted online without any context. The full film just came out and is available now to buy or rent, so if you liked those clips, you should check out the full movie. This unexplained diving footage has recently gone viral on Reddit and is freaking everyone out. The footage shows divers finding an old creepy underwater structure with ancient writing on it. But when they go inside and they see the strange things on the shelves, the footage abruptly ends. No one seems to know where the footage came from, and everyone is arguing on if it's even real or not. The Dumbest Lottery Winners, Part 2. After winning $31 million, Billy Bob Harrell quit his job, gave millions of dollars to his church and to charities, and bought multiple cars and homes for his friends and family. But Billy was just too nice though. Whenever anyone asked him for any amount of money, he would just give it to them, even to strangers. And all this spending plus a divorce left him basically broke, and he tragically committed suicide just 2 years after winning the lottery. Americo Lopez and his co-workers had been taking part in a lottery pool since 2007, and in 2009 Lopez discovered he had the winning ticket in his hand. But rather than share the $38.5 million with his colleagues like he was supposed to, he decided to claim the ticket and keep all the money to himself. All of Lopez's co-workers sued him and took him to court, and Lopez was forced to pay each of them $2 million. This McDonald's worker paid for a family's meal after a mom forgot her wallet, and how she repays him will shock you. Brittany Reed was leaving football practice with her 3 children when her youngest son began crying because he was hungry. So Brittany decided to go to McDonald's to get everyone food. After she ordered the food and pulled up to the drive-thru window to pay, all 3 kids were crying and she realized she left her wallet at home. She looked at the McDonald's employee with tears in her eyes from being stressed and annoyed. And she then told the employee that she would have to cancel her order. The employee was 16-year-old Wyatt Jones. And without hesitation, Wyatt pulled out his own card and paid for all of the family's food. Brittany later found out that Wyatt was saving up to buy his own car. So she set up a GoFundMe account for him to repay him for what he did. And it ended up raising over $50,000. And McDonald's also gave him a reward for what he did. People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident, Part 3. In 1971, Edwin Robinson was in a severe car crash that made him completely blind and partially deaf. 9 years later, he ventured outside his home to rescue his pet chicken from the rain when he was suddenly struck by lightning. But due to the high voltage blast from the lightning strike, he miraculously could see and hear perfectly fine again. During Adam Rayner's early life, he suffered from dwarfism, and at his tallest, he came in at 4.5 feet. But at the age of 21, he developed a tumor on his pituitary gland, which led him to grow to a staggering 7 feet 8 inches within a few years. This made him the only human to ever be classified as both a dwarf and a giant in the same lifetime. Rory Curtis got into a car accident that was so severe he fell into a coma for several days. Thankfully, he came out of it, and when he woke up, he could magically speak perfect French, even though he had only taken a few French lessons 12 years before the accident. The strangest last meal requests on death row, Part 3. Ricky Ray Rector ordered steak, fried chicken, cherry Kool-Aid, and a slice of pecan pie. But he left his slice of pecan pie untouched, and when he was asked why he didn't eat it, he said he was saving it for later. But the strange part is that after his meal, he was going to be executed, so did he think he was going to come back from the dead to eat his pie? Lawrence Brewer decided to indulge in an enormous feast. His order was so large that if I read the whole thing, we would be here all day, so just pause now to read the whole thing. But the order wasn't the strange part. The strange part was when he received all the food, he refused to eat any of it, claiming that he wasn't hungry. And after this little stunt, Texas ended the last meal request forever. Odell Barnes didn't request a normal meal, instead he requested justice, equality, and world peace. But a murderer advocating for world peace is pretty ironic though. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, Part 3. In South Korea, some red traffic lights have a countdown delay that shows you how long it will be until it turns green. And it has been proven to reduce the accident rate by more than 50%. Next, you can say goodbye to hard-to-reach wall sockets with the Rambler socket. The Rambler socket has an extension cord built into the wall itself and can also be used the normal way. It contains about 5 feet of extra cabling and requires only a gentle tug to coil it back into the wall. Next, the Let's Pizza vending machine is the only machine in the world that can prepare Italian pizza from scratch in under 3 minutes. And the machine actually offers 4 different varieties of pizzas. Next, with this adjustable hot sauce, you can pick your spice levels. The clever device mixes a blend of mild and hot sauce, so all you have to do is twist the cap and select the level of heat you want. People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident, Part 2. At 10 years old, Orlando Sorrell was hit by a baseball on the left side of his head really hard. After the accident, his only side effect was headaches, but when they went away, his memory became superhuman. He could remember literally everything on any given day after his accident, like the weather, what he wore, what he ate, what he did, and much more. Khan Trikan from Thailand was cooking fried chicken one day when he was accidentally splashed by oil from head to toe. But when this happened, he discovered he had a superpower. He had no burns or anything on his skin. And he now fries chicken and plunges his hands into boiling fat at his restaurant without any pain or signs of burns. 12-year-old Nikolai was walking home from school when he was electrocuted by a faulty wire but made it home safely. The next day while eating breakfast, he dropped his spoon and it stuck to his body. He then noticed he could stick many different objects to his body and is now nicknamed the Magnetic Boy. The strangest last meal requests on death row, Part 2. John Spankelink was always known as a heavy drinker, so when it came to his final meal, he denied any special food to be prepared. All he asked for was a single flask of Jack Daniel's whiskey, which he shared with the prison superintendent. Ronnie Lee Gardner was determined to make his last meal last as long as possible. His order wasn't too crazy. He asked for steak and lobster tail, apple pie, and a 7-Up, but his other request was pure genius. He requested to watch all 3 Lord of the Rings movies while eating, and surprisingly, he was permitted to do so. And with a combined runtime of 11 hours, it must have been the longest last meal ever. Philip Workman's last meal request was for a large vegetarian pizza to be given to a random homeless person. But prison officials refused to do so and he ate nothing. But surprisingly, on the day of his death, lots of homeless shelters in Tennessee received large amounts of vegetarian pizzas from people all over the country. Here are some times when actors almost died on set, Part 2. In Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, the actor Viggo Mortensen was supposed to float down the river acting as if he was dead. But the speed of the current plus the weight of the costume caused real danger. When he reached this rock, the current pulled him underwater and he nearly stayed there until he eventually kicked off the wall and got back to the surface. In Back to the Future 3, Marty McFly is captured by bandits and hung with a noose until he's quickly rescued. The reason McFly's squirming looks so genuine is because the actor was really being hung. He even passed out for half a minute until the director noticed and saved him. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, Part 2. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. There's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. In the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces. The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Lego. Finally, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button lets the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third one is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid the waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order. Photos you're not allowed to see. You're not allowed to go into Area 51, but a pilot named Gabriel Ziefman broke those rules and flew over top. He took this photo in 2020 and it's the best one we have. Cameras have always been banned in the Supreme Court, but in 1932, Eric Sullivan snuck in a camera. He pretended to have a broken arm and hid his camera inside of the cast. 5 years later, there was another photo taken. A lady cut a hole in her purse and put a small camera in it. Since 1878, the most powerful people in the world meet at this forest in California, where they do lots of ceremonies and rituals. This includes presidents, billionaires, and business people. But a photographer named Gabriel Mulan snuck in and took photos of them, where this one shows them performing a ritual. Here are the weirdest things to ever wash up on the beach, Part 3. In 2016, thousands of snowballs were found on a beach in Siberia. It's the first time something like this has ever happened and probably the last. If you've ever thought about sending a message in a bottle, somebody already did 101 years ago. A German fisherman found a message in a bottle and actually managed to get it to the daughter of the sender. Although it looks like something out of a movie, a robotic hand was found on a beach near New York, and no one really knows where it came from. And if that one wasn't strange enough, a dinosaur bone was found on a beach in Washington. Scientists analyzed it and said that it could be from a T-Rex or a Velociraptor, and it's estimated to be around 80 million years old. And finally, the creepiest one of all, between 2007 and 2008, multiple feet were found still in shoes on the beaches in Canada. In total, 7 feet were found, and there's still no explanation. Here's what would happen if Queen Elizabeth died right now. First, Prince Charles would become king and his wife would become queen. Next, the news of Queen Elizabeth's death would become public, and within minutes it would be trending all around the world. After that, the royal family website would be turned to black, and every news reporter would be forced to wear black. Next, there would be 12 days of mourning in the UK. And her funeral would take place 9 days after her death, becoming a national holiday. After that, Queen Elizabeth will be buried in a vault in Windsor Castle. And lastly, all the money in the UK would change, replacing Queen Elizabeth's head with Charles. Here's what would happen if everyone flushed the toilet at the same time. The first thing to get overwhelmed by the vast amount of waste being flushed would be the lift stations. These are stations that serve to push your waste uphill towards its final destination, the treatment plant. But you can only push so much poop up the pipe. Eventually the pipe gets overwhelmed and can't handle any more wastewater. At that point, it would back up to where it all started, your bathroom. Your toilet would begin to overflow with substances that were supposed to be delivered to the treatment plant. And it wouldn't stop there. The overflow would fill up every wastewater line in your home, including your shower, your sink, and even your washing machine. But not all of our pipes will be able to handle this excess. Many will begin exploding underground and flooding our streets with waste. Here are some animals that got the middle finger from evolution. Sometimes the horns of rams and goats grow so curved and big that they penetrate their skull, causing their death. Horses and donkeys can suffer from abnormal growth in their hooves. If their hooves aren't trimmed, they can no longer walk because of the pain, causing them to die from starvation. When turtles fall on their back, it's really hard for them to roll back over. When this happens, they usually die from too much sun, starvation, or attacks from other animals. During mating season, deers get into such aggressive fights with each other that their antlers get stuck together to the point where they can't be untied. When this happens and no one can separate them, the deer die because they're unable to eat. Finally, the deer pig is famous for its 2 upper tusks. The growth becomes so uncontrollable that it pierces the upper part of their jaw. And in some cases, the tusks will keep growing until it pierces their skull, causing their death. How the most famous magic tricks were performed. The secret to the classic trick where a woman is cut in half by a saw is to use a box divided in two parts. The woman lies down in one box and fake feet come out the other box. To swallow the sword without getting hurt, the magicians place their head up to align their throat and stomach. This way the sword enters in a straight line and doesn't touch anything. The guillotine is one of the most dangerous and famous tricks out there. The secret so that nothing goes wrong is the bottom of the guillotine has hidden compartments and blocks to stop the blade before it reaches the person's neck. To perform the trick where a magician lies on his back and gets ran over by a huge truck, all the weight of the truck is on the opposite side of the magician, so he doesn't really feel that much pain. The dumbest lottery winners. After winning $1.3 million in the California lottery, Dennis Rossi filed for divorce from Thomas Rossi so she wouldn't have to share the money with him. Thomas decided to sue her for violating state law, and he kept all the money. Michael Carroll won $14 million when he was just 19. After claiming he wouldn't spend the money on dumb things, he bought multiple luxury cars, mansions, and other expensive things. To this day, he lost all of his money and works at a cookie factory. Jack Whitaker won $315 million in the US lottery. When he claimed it, he took it all in cash, but soon after, thieves broke into his house and took millions of dollars.